Hello guys, welcome back to another tutorial on complete .NET Web APIs. So in the previous tutorials, we had looked at a library called Mediator, which we used along with CQRS. So in this tutorial, I'll be covering up another library which we use, which is basically to map the objects from one type to another type. So the library which we'll be using is called Mapster. So let me just show it to you. So if you see here, we have a company controller, and in that we have, let's take, for example, the add company method. Okay. So if you see this here in the add company action method, we are taking in the company request as an object. Okay. And then we are converting it to add company. So this is the manual conversion or manual mapping which we are doing. And the mapping libraries help us to do it automatically so that we don't have to manually map the objects from one type to another type. That is from models to DTOs or from command objects to DTOs and vice versa. Okay, so that can be done with the help of mapping libraries, and it makes your code a lot cleaner. And also, in case of controllers, it will help you avoid making fat controllers. Okay, so there are many libraries which are available. Most popularly used one is AutoFac, or not AutoFac, sorry, AutoMapper. But Mapster is a lightweight library and is comparatively very faster for performance as compared to AutoMapper. So let's have a look at how we can implement AutoMapper on this code and check it out. Okay, so first of all, what I'll be doing is in the application layer, let's install the NuGet package. So let me go to NuGet and just say Mapster. So I'll download the latest version of Mapster. So I'll just click here and say install. Yeah, so let's check if Mapster is installed. We have Mapster there. There's another library which will be needed is Mapster.dependency injection. So this will help us to inject the mapper instances in our controllers or any other objects which we do. So let's download the latest library. Okay, so once Mapster and Mapster dependency injection are installed, the next thing what I'll do is I'll go to the presentation layer, and inside common, I'll create another folder called mappings where I'll create my mapping configurations. So let me call it as mappings. Now inside mappings, let me just create another file and call it uh, global mapping config.cs. So I'll just create a class file here, call it as global mapping config. And let's create, call it public sealed as global mapping config, and it should inherit from I register, and this belongs to the Mapster library. Now let's try to implement it. So it has a register method. So this is the place where all our custom configurations for mappings will reside. I'll show you how to do that in a bit. So once this is done, the next thing what we need to do is we need to create another file inside this called dependency injection. So this will help us inject the mapper object in our controllers or any other classes we are using. So let me just call it as dependency injection. Once this is done, I will just create the, change this to public static dependency injection. And I'll also create a method, a static method, public static I service collection. I'll name it as add mappings. This will be like an extension method so that we can just call it inside the configuration of the presentation layer. Okay, so now inside this, what we'll do is we'll first create the config, where config equal to type adapter config. So this belongs to Mapster. Global settings. So that what we'll do is config. So we'll try to scan the assembly to check where this particular global config is and read all the configurations from there. So this line will be doing that, config dot scan. So it will scan the entire assembly. So for that, let's include system dot reflection assembly dot get executing assembly. So this will make sure that all the global mappings are loaded in. And next thing what we'll do is we'll create a singleton. We'll add the dependency for this global configs. Call it a services.singleton. And the last thing what we'll do is we'll do the dependency injection for the Iamapper instance, which we can then use in our controllers. Scoped. So we say Iamapper. And we need to include service mapper here. So this is built inside the Mapster library itself. So this is basically a service mapper. If you just check, go to the definition, it's a kind of a wrapper which includes functionality for dependency injection. So it's all belonging to the same library. Once this is done, then the last thing what we'll do is run services. Okay, so once this is ready, the final step which we need to do for configuration is the presentation layer configuration dependency injection. We just need to call it. So let us call it from here. Just come here and services dot singleton. Services dot add mappings. Add mappings, the one which we have just created. Once this is done, we are good to do the mapping. So now how this will work is we will go to our controller. And if you see here, I'll show you both the classes, the company request and add company command. So we'll do the mapping from here. So first, let's observe how these classes or the records look. This is the company request, and we need to map it to add company command. So we'll go to the definition of that. Let's just take it here and just compare it. So if you see here, the add company command and company request, the signature almost looks similar. So they can be directly mapped. So there is no need of making any additional configuration in the global mapping config because the signature looks almost similar. So that's the reason we can just directly map them. So for mapping, first thing what we need to do is just do the dependency injection. It is private read only include imapper. Let's call it as underscore mapper. Include the Mapster library. And then also inject this inside the constructor. And then we'll just map it here. Once that's done, we can just directly use it instead of creating it manually. What we can do is we can say underscore mapper dot map, and this will be the destination. So our destination is add company command. This is our destination, and our source is nothing but company request, the entire object. So that's it. So if we check now, we have done away with the manual mapping. Let's check if this is working. Let's put a breakpoint here, add company, and start our API. And let's check the database. So we have 3 companies. And our API is now running. Let's check everything is working fine. So we'll go to companies. We'll add a new company. Let's name it as TCS. Just say Bangalore, India. Okay, so now when I click on execute, so if you see the breakpoint is hit here, and when I just go to next and see, the mapping is completely done. So the automapper automatically, the Mapster automatically does the mapping for us. Okay, and we even did not add any manual configuration here, and it did the mapping for us. Let's continue and see what's the response. So response is 201 and it's already created. So let's check if it is actually created. If we try and execute the get all companies, and we should get TCS. So let's check in the database. So we have TCS here. So that's how we use Mapper directly. Now let me show you how we can use for complex objects, wherein we can just take an example of update company. So now for update company, if you see, we are accepting a string ID and the company request. And then what we need to map it to is update company. So for that, what we need to do is we'll first check the signature of company request and update company. So let's just go to definition. And then also just go to the definition of update company. And just see company. So if you see, the signature of company request is different from that of update company. This has an additional string ID. So in this case, how the mapping is done is, if you just go to global mappings, what we'll do is we'll create the mapping, and how we do it is config dot new config, and now for the new config, what we'll do is we first specify the source and destination. Okay, so this is the method. So here the first parameter will be the source, and the second parameter will be the destination. So our destination, we know what it is. Our destination is update company command, but our source has two items. One is the string ID, and one is the company request object. So the way we specify it here is we put a bracket, we put parentheses, not parentheses, we put brackets, and we say first parameter is string ID, and the next parameter is company request object, and we call it company request. Okay. So now the next thing is how we can individually map it. So we just say this dot map, and we first put the destination. So now destination such that destination, so our destination is update company. So destination dot ID will be to destination what source we are mapping. So we'll map the ID from the source to the destination. So say source such that source dot ID, which is this ID which we are supplying. And then we'll map the rest of the object to the entire destination as it is, because the signature is completely matching the rest of the update company command. So we can directly do that. So destination such that destination and the source such that source dot company request. So we are mapping company request to rest of the update company object, because the update company command object, because the signature is same. If the signature was again different here, we could have mapped it individually on each property. Okay. Now, since we have done this global setting, the next thing what we'll do is we'll come here and do the similar kind of stuff which we did. So we'll just say underscore mapper dot map destination will be update command, company command, and the source will again be ID and company. And the way we specify it is putting a bracket, because it's not one object. So it needs to, if you see, it expects one object. So we are considering it as one unit. So ID comma company request. Okay. So now let's check if this is working. So we'll put a breakpoint here and we'll update the company name which we had just inserted. So let's copy the ID of the company. So if we just check here, TCS was the company which we created. Let's copy the ID. So we'll just rename it to Tata Consultancy Services and see if it is working. Let's go to companies and we'll use the put endpoint. Use the same ID, and this time we'll name it as Tata Consultancy Services. Okay, address again will be for India. Okay, so now let's execute and see if this works. And yes, it is completely mapping. And now if we continue and we are getting the response correctly, let's check the database if the update is made. Let's check if TCS changes to Tata Consultancy Services, and yes, it is. So now we have mapped the objects using Mapster. So we have done even simple mapping and a complex kind of mapping. If you want to learn even more and go into deep, much more complex configurations, I have a GitHub link, which I'll be putting in the description. down below. So you can just check that. And they have a documentation wherein you can do complex configurations with Mapster. And yes, Mapster is definitely very fast as compared to AutoMapper. So please use it, and it will make your controllers or your code look much cleaner to read, and it will also save you the time for doing manual mappings. Okay, so that's it from me in this tutorial.